Thank you for listening to the Gateway to the Rockies podcast from Visit Aurora from the rafters of the Stanley Marketplace. This is the show dedicated to telling the stories of Aurora, Colorado. Hi there, I'm Dave, the Director of Marketing for Visit Aurora. Today, we're joined by Deepali, founder and artistic director of Roshni Performing Arts Sanctuary in the Aurora Cultural Arts District. Deepali has built Roshni around the belief that art can uplift, heal, inspire, and give a voice to stories that too often go unheard. Now she's bringing those ideas to life in Route 15, a groundbreaking immersive theater experience inspired by the people who live, work, and travel along East Colfax, featuring theater, dance, music, comedy, and storytelling. Route 15 brings together a remarkably diverse cast to explore resilience, belonging, hope, and the connections that we share. Deepali, I'm so excited to meet you today. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for inviting me.
This production premieres as part of Roshni's 6th annual New American Arts Festival, and I want to talk about that, but I want to talk about your journey as well. You're fascinating. Your story begins far from Aurora, in a small town in northern India, where pursuing life as an artist wasn't necessarily an expected or accepted path. What inspired you to break from that convention and go off to pursue your passion, even if it was at the behest of your family and the community?
I'd like to say it's my spiritual belief that I'm an old soul. You know, I started something in my previous life, and I guess I was born in a country where I had to understand the taboos, the limitations that one can encounter as a human. And in this case, I was not only in a cultural boundaries, not just women, but even men have a lot of cultural boundaries, but also more so as a girl in a small town. India is amazing. I don't think so there's any country in the world that has so many cultures. Can you imagine? We speak 3,000 languages, including dialects. I speak 8 languages.
We brag about our 160 in Aurora. It's a little pale in comparison.
Exactly. And so, and I wasn't born in a big city. I was born in a small town.
Yeah.
And where girls couldn't do a lot of things. It was expected for them to come home, do their homework, household chores, and then just be a good girl. And I was anything but. And I think a part of that came maybe because, you know, why some kids are born like that, why some kids are always questioning, you know. And I think, I cannot explain why I questioned, but I questioned everything.
There was something within you that had to get out and express.
Yes. And I also felt that this is called an evolution of your soul or consciousness. Instead of just following what's being told, we all have been given a conscious or something that we call reasoning. It's a common sense. And you ask, why I'm not allowed to do this? Why if a boy can do it, I cannot do it?
Yeah.
Why if a boy can learn a karate, I cannot, you know, swim, play squash and all of that. And I think I knew from very early on that I'm a storyteller. And I just needed to find an expression, and I found that in dance.
You worked in street theater, filmmaking, refugee integration, dance, choreography, and community arts. In India, Sweden, Canada, and eventually Colorado. Obviously, I imagine you have 1,000 stories, but when you look back at that journey, what are some of the key experiences that shape the artist and community builder that you are today?
There were many stories that I can think of, but there was this one time when I was a little girl, and we in India, we also have what you call racism through caste. Mm-hmm. And the way you look, you know, the color of your skin, they all matter. And so one time I realized, I remember there were this group of boys that taunted me, and they said that I could not do certain things that they thought, you know, and I thought that I want to show them. And I just went ahead and, like, you know, I don't know if it was some kind of a competition that I had to win, or maybe it was a race. I don't remember, but I do remember. But at that point of time when you are surrounded by this group of boys, who look at you and say you can't do it, there is something inside of you that says, I can. And I feel I've always been, whenever something has been challenging, I'm a rebel. I just gotta do it. Just 2 weeks ago, I learned how to ride a motorcycle.
Congratulations.
On the motorcycle that's Honda Rebel,
Yeah.
And because I was told I could never learn to ride a motorcycle because it's heavy, it's big, it's bulky, and I'm a small person. So I think, it took me 3 decades, more than 3 decades, but I did it, And so I feel like that's just that one point. And then my mother was a big inspiration.
Yeah.
My mother was the first one in her little small village to go to school. And she paved the path for all the girls in her village to go to school.
Wow.
So, when you have a mother like that, and she lived by example, she didn't speak. She lived by her example. And I feel I observed more than, I heard. And so I feel, and also I'm a feeling person. I feel so much. And when you feel, there are 2 ways to handle it. One, you really express. And if you can't, you explode or you implode, right? And unfortunately, a lot of kids are told to just shut up.
Right.
And
know your
not
place.
speak.
Yeah.
No. And look at what happened to them.
Yeah.
It comes out sideways. And I was just a person who just didn't accept that.
So I want to explore that just a little bit. You had courage, you had audacity, and I mean that in a positive. When you're encountering a young person that has maybe come from a background where they are told to stay in their place and be quiet, I imagine it's a journey to get them to be as courageous as you were. How do you start that journey for them? Or what's the path? How do you say, hey, you have this light? How do you instill that courage in them?
It takes time.
Yeah.
And nothing happens right away. But it's also, I have come to believe that there are times when you just have to let go. But so when I do work with a lot of children, I work on an average with 100 children, and it's an after-school program. And we have many, many beautiful success stories. In fact, 3 of the children are in my play in this Route 15.
Yeah.
3 of the kids are performing. 2 of the neurodivergent adults are performing. I just believe that if you are patient enough and you're loving enough and you just show them by example, they will follow. So I feel it's week after week. You get to spend 2 hours with them once a week. It's like therapy. That's what I say. Art is healing.
Yes.
You uplift. First of all, the first step is always to uplift. You got to do things that are fun. Once, in street theater, we always say medium becomes the message, which means if you have a message, you don't expect that those people will understand. You have to go down to their level.
Yeah.
So if it's a young person, I have to become young like them. I have to see I have a 12-year-old. Believe me, on a daily basis, I'm working with him.
Yeah.
And even today, I have to remind myself, he's only 12. And then you just breathe. And then you reach out, squeeze his hand and say, I love you. I love you no matter what.
Right.
And he understands that. So he goes home and he helps his dad. He does all of the things. So I feel it's a process. I didn't get that, except for watching my mother work, I think she would wake up 6 o'clock and she would not stop until 10. I think that was my only, she was my role model, but I didn't have anyone. We didn't have these opportunities that kids have today. Really, I feel like we didn't even know where to go for any after-school program. Today, kids have a lot more exposure than in my time. So I feel, but I guess that's why we also got very creative because we didn't have phone. We didn't have those distractions. We didn't have computer games. So my sister just called me the other day, said, Bali, do you remember how creative we were and how we would make things? So kids were just very creative, I feel. So anyone in my generation, you'll feel they're much more outgoing and doing creative things than, the kids today. And it's heartbreaking.
It's almost out of necessity growing up in that environment. You described discovering Aurora after moving to Colorado and performing at places like the Aurora Fox. What did you see or experience in Aurora that made you feel like this was a community where you could put down your own artistic roots?
Okay, why did I start Roshni? That's the answer that I'm going to give you.
Yeah.
So, well, at that time when I came 10 years ago, I had a newborn. He was 6 months old. Oh, sorry, 6 months old. But by the time I went and did my first play, he was a year and a half. So 2016, I started coming for rehearsals. And every time I would get off the highway on 225 and come on the sixth, in that corner, there was always a family. There was a Black father and a Hispanic mom, and their year and a half, 2-year-old daughter was playing in the mud. And every time I would see that, I would be reminded of my childhood when I played in, my mother didn't have to beg, but we were, on that little ground and playing with clay. And every time I saw that, I also saw my son, who is surrounded by all his toys that he doesn't even care about in his room. And suddenly it was always like, I remember that. I remember where I came from. And I also remember the blessings that I have received over the years of having lived in Sweden, Canada, and now in the US, and living comfortably. And so I was wondering, what, as an artist, how can I use my talent to bring a little bit more bridge between haves and haves not, And so when I discovered Aurora, I discovered, people that don't have much, but they come from places where, they have learned to be resilient. They have learned to be very grateful and learned to make most of very little. And I felt that, imagine if I can work with them and give them a voice, especially with the children, maybe I could just try. But it took me some time. It was not something that happened right away, because my sister, who works a lot with human trafficking, was invited to come and speak in the US. And so she visited me, and I remember taking a walk with her. And in 2015, you have to understand, the country was changing.
Yeah.
It was changing totally. People were being so divided because Mr. Trump was standing to be a president, and that was dividing people. And I saw that firsthand. And I was, as an immigrant, as an artist, I was wondering what's going to happen. So I was telling my sister that maybe it's a very wrong time for me to come, here. And then I said, and what can I do? I'm only a dancer. And I remember she looks at me squarely in the eyes, and she says, well, what can you not do?
Right.
You are a dancer. And I think,
I love that change of perspective.
Yes, she's always throwing things at me like that.
Yeah.
She's the one person who's always supported me, but also always challenged me, because she knows how capable we all can be. And, and it's so funny, because I used to listen a lot of song of John Denver. In fact, I was listening to one song, and the song is called An Eagle and a Hawk. And it's so beautiful. And he ends with these two lines: let's hope for the future, what we can be, not what we are, what we can become and not what we are. And I feel like, when he wrote those songs, they're from Colorado. They're from this place. We have such a beautiful nature that blesses. And I was just like, if only that tenacity, that resilience, that hope, that spirit could be translated into us humans, not just because we are different races, but because we're human, know. And I feel like somehow I felt that we could find a balance, because nature propels culture, and culture informs nature. In some way, we are connected. And so all of those things were something that took time, about 6 months, but slowly I felt like I have to do something. I don't want to be, marching or doing demonstration, because those are just one time. What I need to do is something that happens every day. And so with just a small, faith, step of faith, I did that. And then my ex-partner, my Swedish husband, who's still my best friend. And he said to me one thing when I was starting going to register. He said, if you can impact the life of one child, then existence of Roshni would have been justified.
Roshni means light in Farsi, and the organization's mission is literally about shining a light on stories that are too often left in the shadows. When you founded Roshni, what was missing from the traditional arts landscape that you wanted to create for yourself and for the other artists?
For me, I come from a country where every artwork has a story. I'm a storyteller. I'm not just doing art for the sake of art. I want to tell a story.
Yeah.
And I wanted to tell my story. I wanted to let people tell their story. And if you go on East Colfax, you will see life like none other exist in any part of Colorado. It's a beautiful long street where, well, it depends how you look at it. So, a lot of people said when I was going to work, why are you working in that neighborhood?
Right.
And I said, Roshni means light. If I were to go where there's already light, then there is no purpose of light being there. You have to go where there is darkness, and maybe you can shine, you can create a place. And so it took me some time. It took about 8 years to find a space, our own space. But for 8 years, we have served the people from Yosemite all the way to Peoria along the East Colfax in Aurora, not Denver, but in Aurora. These are my people. And primarily we started working with people who are mostly displaced by war and genocide. And those were the stories that we wanted to tell. And the inspiration for this came from Canada. When I lived in Montreal, there's a very small group of Tibetans who live there. There's a huge community in New York, but some of them also moved to Montreal. And I was shocked to see that some of the master artists who worked with Dalai Lama, His Holiness Dalai Lama, were working as shoemaker in factories.
Wow.
Really, I was so shocked to see that. Like they were taken as children, how in a Tibetan Buddhism, one child of the family is taken as a monk. These children are also identified because of their talent. And from the age of 3, they go to study in a arts, they call it main performing arts center. And they're trained to be singer, dancer. They do nothing. That's all they do. But they moved from India, Dharamshala, and then they came to Montreal, and the only job they could find was shoemakers working in a shoe factory or work in a restaurant, washing dishes, cooking. And I just, when I see something like that, I'm always like, I cannot stop myself from feeling like, what can I do?
Right.
And so I was invited because my Gorkha tradition is a lot like Tibetan. We eat same food and everything. So I remember being invited in a house, and I was just like sitting there, and I'm like, wow, I have to, and I'm listening to all these stories, and I'm so inspired. And I said, I want to tell the story. And I do remember Bhu Rinzing. He comes to me and he joins his hands like this. I think he's passed since then, but he was in his 70s. And he comes and he says to me, daughter, if you can tell our story, if you can help us tell our story, then we will tell the truth of what happened. Because he was one of the person who escaped from Tibet. And so that when we pass on, our generations who are to come will know the truth, because history is always written by the winners, not by the people who actually, experienced it.
Right.
And we created this huge play, and the Canada Council of the Arts gave us such a big grant to create a play that we did, and we brought the whole community together, and it was a 1-year project. And then and this changed the whole community. And they continue to tell their story year after year, because these kids came on and they found something. And I can tell you, since 9 years ago when I started, today there are more people who are telling their stories than ever. I'm talking about refugees and immigrants. You will see there's there are more and more opportunities for them too. So and when I started 9 years ago, there was not much happening. But today I am so happy to see and even collaborate with some of the really wonderful residents of East Colfax who are coming together to tell. They're telling their stories, and that's where we take pride. We're not telling their story.
Yeah.
They're telling their own story.
Yeah, one of the things that really struck a chord with me about the idea of Roshni is that artistic expression isn't a privilege. It's an essential component of one's identity and self-expression. Having experienced these different stories, these perspectives, these people that have gone through what they've gone through and are loving their identity and expressing their story, how have you changed over these years?
Every day I wake up and I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful. And there's a line that the bus driver, Mo, says in Route 15. And he says that, because that's me. The bus driver is me. And he says, by taking people to their destination, perhaps I have found my own journey.
Wow. That's powerful. Let's talk about Route 15. I was born and raised here. I've ridden the 15 my entire life.
Wow.
Of all the places and symbols that you could have chosen to tell the story of East Colfax, I feel like I have a sense of the answer to this question, but why the 15 bus?
5 years ago when we started looking for a space, we needed not just a space to do a programs, we needed a performance space. There was quite a few organizations invited me to Denver where they would have given me for free, but I could not leave this place. But so East Colfax Route 15 is the bus that a lot of our participants take to come to our space now. We are on East Colfax. Every time we stop there, there's a bus. So, and I have myself taken that bus a few times. And I know all the people come and share stories from the bus. We have such beautiful, and I don't want to give out the story, but something like people have shared with me in what's happening in the bus is amazing. And we also know that, sometimes when you take the same bus, you create friendship, you create a community, you create, like, even if you have the same bus driver, they start knowing you, there's like a little, you start looking forward to going that.
Right.
And also, what happens if in a bus you meet person who is looking for a community, who doesn't feel like I belong anywhere? Roshni is that. Roshni is a place where I started Roshni because I didn't find a belonging anywhere. I couldn't belong. And so Route 15 is a story of finding a community to belong, to know that there is somebody who sees me, somebody who cares. Maybe it's not the people I want to see, but other people will see. And I think we all need that. We all need friendship. I sometimes think, when I used to say, people don't need therapy, people need friends. If you have friends, that will be your therapy, because therapy happens once a week, twice a week. But friendship, if you can create a meaningful friendship, then you can overcome anything. And I think that's what I've seen in the last 9 years of our different programs. So many people, hundreds of thousands of, I would say, have come, and some of them have ended up becoming friends. Such good friends. And I've seen people who've been on the brink of like, there's no hope for me, turn around. And they are now really the light of wherever they're going. So I've seen such beautiful transformation. And only because I'm not saying Roshni has provided a community, but the sense of belonging is so important.
These are real life stories.
Yes. All of them.
How did you gather those stories, and how did you approach the responsibility of turning someone's lived experience into theater while still honoring the person behind it? How do you navigate that?
Ooh. These stories have been gathered over the last 9 years. And I don't know how much you know, Well, the little you might have seen me, I'm a people's person.
I get that sense. I could feel that. Yeah.
I'm the therapist. You can say, but over the years, I have met so many wonderful, inspiring people. These are the people that I'm saying have transformed their lives.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they have been a part of our program. They've
Gotcha.
come and gone.
Okay.
They've come and gone. They have started to come because they wanted to participate in a program.
Right.
And then they saw and I would always tell them, well, now you have to tell your story, because if you have found that healing, you just can't keep it to yourself.
Right.
There's so many out there who are in your position. As a human, if we have found something, we need to share. And often these people are more than happy. They have ended up being in the role of mentors. In fact, I'm so proud that the guy who plays Mo, oh my goodness, and I think I will send you his recording so you can get that, because he lives in that neighborhood. He grew up in that neighborhood, and he's never acted. And he came in because he dances, and he came to me and to audition for the dance, and I looked at him and I said, "You are Mo." He said, "What? Who am I?" I said, "You are the Mo, the bus driver." And it's like, I've never acted in my life. And he said, "Yeah, exactly. That's why.
Right.
Because your inspiration comes from life. You're not an actor. If you were an actor, I might as well just get somebody."
Not asking you to act. I'm asking you to be Mo.
Yes.
You are Mo.
Yes. He's a math professor in his real life. He's lived there. He represents our community. He knows that. He's taken the bus. He bikes, and I could not have. And you know what's the best thing I feel about Route 15 is that we have representation of the entire 7 group of people that we work with. So there are 3 major demographics in along East Colfax. You'll find the African American, you'll find the Hispanic Latin, and you'll find the rest, which we call refugees and immigrants.
Yeah.
And we have such a beautiful representation. And then we also have a lot of people, like like I said, 3 youth and 2 neurodivergent. We have, the youngest one is 10, the oldest is 75. So it's amazing how much a 10-year-old would have to talk to a 75-year-old. It's really beautiful to see, when our actors come together. They're warrior cast.
Yeah.
All of them. They balance life. Half of them, only a half, less than half are professional actors. Rest everyone are from the community. 7 of them are debuting this time out of 17.
Yeah. 26 cast and crew members representing 14 nations, including immigrants and refugees, people with disabilities, seniors, LGBTQ plus participants, obviously folks of color as well.
Yes.
It's an extraordinary collection of perspectives within one production. What has rehearsal been like? Have there been moments where the cast members themselves discovered maybe some unexpected connections with one another?
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
I feel that. I can already see that every time we come in, we have so much fun. And, like one of the guy, his name is Jorge. He actually lived in a shelter home in Boulder, and he came to become a part of the show. And then here we're talking about, expressing, fighting, being warrior. So he goes and he fights, like he writes, he goes on a hunger strike because the Boulder shelter home for men they were not being taken care of. And so he goes for a hunger strike, and lo and behold, not only he gets a job, he gets a job done, it's all clean, but he's reinstated as a lawyer now.
Wow.
He was, so, I'm seeing, and also we challenge, we navigate our life's challenges, and I see on a daily basis these, my cast and crew. I can talk about each one of them, but it's just, for me, I would say it's my honor and privilege to know them. 5 years ago, I had thrown out an intention of having our own space, having a story, and the right people to work with. And we've been in rehearsal for 10 weeks now.
Yeah.
So because we are a community, we're not a theater company. That's what I always tell. We're
Right.
not a theater company. We're just an arts organization, grassroots, that uses theater to tell a story. And so we don't do our 6-week intense 4 days a week. We do 12 weeks, but twice or thrice a week. So that's what we've been doing. And And it's been amazing. And I love dance because I'm a dancer. So we're talking about some very grim topics, right? We're talking about gangs. We're talking about drugs. We're talking about suicide. We're talking about guns. We're talking about sexual assault. We are talking very grim topics. And how do you say it in a way that you can still say it, but it's still not so grim? And that's why where we use dance, music, visuals. So it's really, it's all coming together.
There's one cast member that you left out, and obviously I don't think by design, but this isn't a just sit there and watch experience. Route 15 is an immersive theater experience, incorporating storytelling, dance, comedy, music, and multidisciplinary performance. Without giving away too much, what will it actually feel like for an audience member who comes through the doors and boards Route 15?
Oh, they're going to be swept away into a world they've never seen. They're just going to become, just going to come in the door, and then you'll have all these, including myself, whisk you away into a back room where we are just at this, as we speak, is creating beautiful mural. It's our back wall will have amazing mural of the people. So in that place, they will stay and they will be entertained until it's time to get on the bus.
Yeah.
And they will get on the bus, and then bam, they're gonna be having sensory experiences, auditory, sensory, visual, all kinds, and I think they will become part of the story. We'll take them. They will. I mean, we won't ask them to speak, but they will be. The way the lights and sounds are designed, that they all become, immersed in. And we're creating like not a bus, but this life-size bus.
This is going to sound like a surface question, but I imagine that your response will be anything but that. There's a theme throughout Route 15, and it's kindness.
Yes.
Which feels like a basic idea, but it's very not. Why did kindness become such an important theme of this production?
I do say kindness, but I think more I'm referring to empathy.
Okay.
Empathy is what I'm saying. Okay, so we talk about empowerment, right? We all say, we need to be empowered. But I feel empathy is the last step of empowerment, which means, exactly like I said, when you have learned something for yourself through your life experience, what you can offer to another person is grace. The grace that person has to allow themselves to feel the pain, to go through it, and yet hold that person's hand as they're going through it. So I don't want to give away the story, but that's what it is. The person who will come on very early on in the bus is a person who requires that grace. And the whole journey is working. As you just asked me, how do you tell a person that you're worthy? How do you tell a person that your life means something, that you are something, just by the fact that you're born? Just that one thing. And often we go through life feeling, what's my purpose?
Absolutely. Route 15 premieres during the 6th edition of the New American Arts Festival, which you created to showcase artists and stories that haven't always had access to traditional, air quotes, cultural institutions. 6 years into the festival, what has it become that you couldn't have imagined when you started it?
Wow. I did not. When I thought about New American Arts Festival, first of all, let me tell you why I started New American Arts Festival. Because there's so many festivals in Colorado.
Yeah.
So many festivals in Denver. Like you can't even if you went to one festival each day, you will not get through all the festivals that there are, right?
Yeah.
But, and some of them have been there for a long, long time. But when it comes to New America for me is inclusive and diverse. I wanted to create, so I had been working for 2 years in offering activities and programs to people to express. Now, when they were ready to express, they were ready to sing, dance, do theater, there was no place that they could do it. We didn't have a theater who was willing to work with them. or tell their stories. And I kept thinking, like, my own time when I go and dance, and I just didn't want to just go into a dance. When you think about diversity festival, you'll see a lot of people coming and showcase their different kinds of dances and cultural thing. But there's no story in there.
Yeah.
And the story is also like, you understand, I will tell you, you will understand your tradition when it comes in touch with mine. You go out of America, you will understand how much you miss the food here. So I feel like our culture becomes much more apparent to us when it comes in contact with other cultures. So I wanted to create a place where all of these people can meet, share, showcase, represent, but through stories that really matter. It's a movement. It's a festival that unlike anything else. And the inspiration for that actually came from in 2018, Roshni hosted Yo-Yo Ma's event. And Yo-Yo Ma I did not know him before meeting him. But what a magnificent person he is. Because the music he played, he said, this beautiful music is actually started in way far east, but it has traveled through so many countries that each country it went to, it adopted something from that. And finally, the music that he played was so beautiful because everyone could feel a note of their culture in there. Imagine that. That's the music. That's the one solo thing he played. And I wanted to create a story that has everyone included in it. Not just you or me, everyone, like from all walks of life. And that was the intention. Today, I'm just so grateful. In the past, in all the 5 editions, we've had different groups come and do their own different thing. But this is the first time when we brought everybody together in one production. So that's why it's very different.
This podcast is heard by a lot of Aurora residents, and I'm grateful for that, and also people that are considering visiting our city. If someone came to Aurora specifically for the New American Arts Festival and Route 15, what would you want them to explore along East Colfax and in the cultural arts district so they could better understand the community behind this production?
There are definitely a lot of food, lots of food along East Colfax. There are a lot of, get your hair done. There are a lot of barber shops, so you can go.
That doesn't apply to me, but yeah.
Yeah, I know. But you can do that. There are also, I know some boutiques where they sell different kind of dresses. Food definitely is a big thing. Yeah. So I think you should come empty stomach. You should just come with empty stomach when you're coming. And you should come in so the show starts at 6:30. So I think you'll be here at 4. Go and visit a cafe. We have a few cafes around. We have food, walk along. And then there's also a little bit of park at the back that you can, if you want to just take a little break. And then, and just come in over Roshni, and doesn't matter what time you come, you will be entertained.
Route 15 deals with survival, resilience, healing, hope, and ultimately community, shared humanity. When the performance ends and someone steps back onto East Colfax, hopefully with the full stomach, what do you hope they notice differently about the people around them? And what do you hope they carry with them on their journey home?
Everybody comes from somewhere. Everybody has a history. Even if the people on the street, you see them. Once upon a time, they were children playing somewhere, and life hit hard, and they made choices. So we all come from somewhere, but we all are connected. Every choice you make, you think it's just you. But even consuming like a certain food or certain, buying something, merchandise, we all have a responsibility. We all do have a responsibility to creating a world where we all can coexist. That's what when the sanctuary is a safe space. If you don't come and judge others because you don't want to be judged. We all are human. I think that's That's our basic value. So empathy, that's what I want. People, when I want them to go out of seeing Route 15, I just want them to understand and take a little piece of empathy. Because empathy is an acquired skill. It's not something you're born with. That's one skill. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. I didn't understand empathy until I met that family on the street. I did not know what empathy. I was just feeling it so much, but I just didn't know the word. But that inspired me. It propelled me to make a change. And I feel like that's what. But I know that everyone who comes will be touched in a way that they will. And I think that's the power of live art, live theater, is that you're so touched in the room where it's happening. Like you cannot not be touched.
Deepali, I could talk to you for another 10 hours. This has been so energizing for me. Thank you for sharing your light with me today.
Thank you, David.
Route 15 runs for 9 performances, September 6th through 20th at Roshni Healing Arts Sanctuary. It's at 9709 East Colfax Avenue in the Aurora Cultural Arts District. Learn more now at roshniislight.org. Visit Aurora is the official destination marketing organization for the city of Aurora, Colorado, and acts as the primary liaison between meeting planners and hotel partners. As Aurora's Convention and Visitors Bureau, Visit Aurora's mission is grounded in showcasing Aurora as a premier destination for meetings, business, and leisure travel. Visit Aurora represents more than 60 hotel properties with 11,500 guest rooms and more than 1 million square feet of meeting space, including Colorado's largest and newest resort, Gaylord Rockies Resort and Convention Center. As Colorado's third largest city, Aurora is located minutes away from Denver International Airport and showcases mountain views, memorable meeting spaces, and 400 plus international eateries that offer a unique experience for each and every visitor. As the gateway to the Rockies, Visit Aurora's role in the community goes beyond marketing the city as a destination. The Visit Aurora team is here to assist you with your Colorado visit, from facilitating your meeting, event, or convention to helping you discover local flavor and attractions. Go beyond the boardroom in Aurora. For more, visit us at visitaurora.com.